Everything sports. It's Jim and it's Matthew. Today, a lot to talk about. We got one of the most interesting and fun tournaments on the season. It's an iconic tournament, uh,
Hmm.
the AT&T Pebble Beach Classic out there, and it's been around for, my God, going all the way back into the 40s when it was the Bing Crosby tournament. And back in the day when he and Bob Hope, uh, when they were superstars, and it's evolved into one of the. It remains iconic, even though few people even remember that Bing Crosby had anything to do with it. Um,
I had
it
no idea.
yeah, it was. They did movies together, Crosby
Okay.
and Hope, and they both were golf nuts. As a matter of fact, in their contracts on the movies that they did
Hmm.
was was a time of day that they were allowed to go out and play 4 or 5 holes before they came back to do finish the movie.
That's pretty good
So
stipulation when you got that kind of negotiating
when
power.
you get that kind of power of it, man,
Yeah.
it works. And so what they did is Hope hosted a tournament in Palm Springs, and Crosby decided he would be out on the Monterey Peninsula, which he had a house out there. So
Hmm.
now, fast forward to 2026, and those two gentlemen have been long since passed, but their tournaments live on, and we certainly enjoy. I enjoy just simply watching the tournament from afar here and watching it on television. It's a phenomenal tournament, and it always has some fun, celebrities and all the stuff that goes with it. It's an entertaining tournament, and so actually, it's funny. My nephew went to high school out there, and one of the things that they used to do on Thursdays, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday after school is were allowed to go on the roof, set up some lawn chairs, and watch the tournament, which was on the course next door to the high school.
Wow.
So they had these sky boxes for for the uh, 4 holes around the tournament. So that was
Hmm.
kind of fun. So let's talk about the tournament. What's going on?
So this is we talked about on the West Wing how all of these not all of them, but there's a good majority of these West Coast golf tournaments, specifically
Hmm.
the California tournaments, that do these split courses. Like they split
Hmm.
their tee times across different courses. The Pebble Beach Pro Am is no different. They have on the first 2 days they split it. You're going to play Spyglass one day, and you're going to play Pebble the other day.
Hmm.
Um, it's right now from the what the report on the broadcast that I was watching said is that it's currently warm enough to take your sweater off and feel very comfortable, sunny, not a cloud in the sky, no wind. Beautiful conditions. The scorings reflecting that as well. You got the leader in Ryu Hit Hisitsune. I don't know if I'm saying that 100% correctly, but he's 7 under through 12 holes. Chris Gotterup is one back at 6 under, coming off of a win at the Waste Management, and he's 6 under through 7 holes. Um, I mean, there's 7 people at 5 under or better right now already. There are, let's see here, there are 55 players at under par or better. So it's playing really easy. The conditions are playing really easy, which is funny considering a lot of the videos that I saw from yesterday's practice rounds had people, or the practice rounds earlier throughout the week, have been people where they're like, I saw Scotty Scheffler and Siwoo Kim hit a driver on a par three. Like, like that's what the wind was doing at Pebble over these last couple of days, and now it's cleared up perfectly for this golf tournament, and they are in prime scoring conditions right now.
And one of the things out there is it's crazy, but weather on in that part of California is better in the fall and even early winter at times than it is in the summer because of the marine layer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the fog and other things that you might have an issue with, right, is
Mm-hmm.
something you don't have an issue with regards to, now out there. And the tournament, the one thing, and we've seen this year in and year out, right,
Mm-hmm.
at the Crosby, is because it's literally right on the ocean. You can have some pretty brisk winds that will drive you nuts. And it's my brother played the course, and I've seen it numerous times. And the thing that he was explaining to me was that the course itself is a fair course. It's not. They don't they don't trick it up.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think they have to, which is probably true, which is absolutely correct. Because the elements play a role.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talked about that marine layer, right? That marine layer may come in the morning, it may come in the afternoon. You have no idea when it's going to come. So you don't know if you're playing in Marin, California, or in Scotland.
Yeah.
So there's that. The wind can be wicked off that, off there at times. So it's one of those courses that was designed so good, you don't really have to trick it up. Which sometimes, you and I've seen in some of these in majors where they literally try to figure out how to make the course diabolical.
Yeah. I
And in this case, you don't have to do it. It's already diabolical.
Yeah, I was gonna go back to like Oakmont, difficult golf course in and of itself, but
Uh huh.
they intentionally grew that rough out to 8 inches last year, like
Hmm.
for a reason. They sped those greens up for a reason.
Hmm.
Is what's a fairly difficult golf course on its own.
Hmm.
They decided that they were going to make it just as hard as humanly possible for those guys last year at the U.S. Open. Um, but yeah, it's not by design. It's not meant to be necessarily easy. It uses the landscape that it's built on. There are slope fairways. There's significant elevation changes on a number of these holes. You can go to the stretch that Scotty Scheffler's on right now. He's just moved, finished up the par five sixth, then moved on to the par three seventh. Like that's a significant swing in terms of types of golf holes that you're going on back to back. You got the par five six. It's it's a layup into a fairway where then your green is elevated to a point to where you can't even see. Like you're picking a camera tower and you're hitting at the camera tower. You're it's obviously stuff that they go in and they work on and they know their targets and where they're hitting at, but it's a blind green. You don't know where you're hitting at. Versus you move to the par three seventh, and that's a hole that if you have a helping one, plays less than 100 yards. Like it's a really short par three and a significant downslope as well. So it uses its contour because there's a lot of slanted fairways and stuff like that. They don't have to do anything special. They got to cut the grass, rake the bunkers, and let the boys go play.
Right. It's we've got up right now. So what we want you to do is we're going to be talking a lot about a number of different sports. Each one of these sports we're talking about, you can read right now at sportstalkflorida.com. That's sportstalkflorida.com. And some of them will be on Sports Talk New York, which is basically sportstalknyfan.com. So please, by all means, check it out, and we'll see how it goes. What's you were saying about Scotty? Is Scotty playing this morning already? Is that what you would say? I couldn't.
Yeah, he just finished the sixth. He's currently on seven green. He's one under par right now.
Has
Uh,
Rory started?
yeah, Rory's in the top five. He's tied for third currently at 5 under.
Hmm.
He's 5 under through 9 holes. Jordan Spieth, somebody who it, it seems like when people talk about Jordan Spieth, they try to talk about the Jordan Spieth of the past, and he's had a lot of mechanical issues that I think people have gone through, highlighted. He was aware of as well. Coming into this season, he made some swing tweaks, and he's playing better golf overall. And he's currently at 5 under as well, tied for third.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's It's a right now it is a leaderboard that it's packed with the big names, like the guys that the PGA Tour has pushed, and you've gotten used to kind of knowing their name. It's packed with those guys. Sepp Straka is tied for eighth. Akshay Bhatia is tied for third. Jake Knapp, um, a guy who he's got his own hard journey that he's talked about. He's 5 under right now as well with Tommy Fleetwood, Spieth, and McIlroy.
Mm-hmm.
Siwoo Kim, young star, he's right there, top eight at 4 under. So this is a packed leaderboard on what has really, for most of these guys, not even been a full 9 holes yet.
You know, I, I think that with Jordan, his problem has been recently putting 3 days together. You
Hmm.
know, and he certainly is the kind of guy who has the ability. Uh, he's proven in the past to take over a tournament and cruise on in. Um, but those injuries have been a problem for him, and hopefully, he can get out of there without too much in the way of problems. And you know, I don't know. We all like to see. I hate to say it this way personally. I like to see the best golfers play each other.
Yeah,
And if that's a Final Four of Rory and Jordan and Scotty, and pick someone else, that'd be cool with me.
yeah, no, and it's been. Speaking of Spieth, I was just going to throw this out there. I saw a clip of him when he was playing one of his practice rounds. He decided, and for the life of me, I can't remember the exact hole number, but there's a par four where you really have to hit a layup shot. It's elevated to where
Hmm.
you're hitting a layup into the fairway, because then it's just ravine between you and the green,
Right.
and the green's back downhill some. Well, he was literally standing on the edge of a cliff and hit a shot. He later went back and said that he regretted taking the shot because of just how dangerous the maneuver was that he was pulling
Hmm.
off. But it's his brand of golf. That's the best brand of Jordan Spieth golf, is when he's making pars from stupid places and his
Hmm.
putter's hot, so he's making birdies when he's hitting greens and fairways.
Hmm. Well, it's definitely something to keep a lookout for. And we'll talk about it more tomorrow when we get a better chance of it. But um, I don't know. I think if it were me, I think I'd want to do Spyglass on Friday and not on Thursday.
Yeah, and that's what some of the scoring early, like I based on I haven't gone through and looked at every last one of them, but based
Hmm.
on the stuff that I'm seeing, a lot of these guys appear to be playing, or a slight majority appear to be playing Pebble, and as opposed to Spyglass. But
Hmm.
Spieth is playing Spyglass. He's in top three.
Hmm.
Fleetwood is playing Spyglass. Let's see, is McElroy is playing Spyglass. So Spyglass too is playing at a scoreable pace right now. Like there's a Xander Schauffele, since he
Wow, there's
started,
a name I forgot.
yeah, since he started this season, he has not played that well. He's currently 2 under through 10 at Spyglass, so he's scoring there as well, which
Hmm.
may be an indication of how Spyglass is playing, or what I hope personally is an indication that he's starting to round back into that form that we saw win 2 major championships in 2024.
Hmm. Well, there you go. Meanwhile, cross country over in Daytona Beach, they will be getting ready tonight for the twin duels. One quick thing. Let's go back to the golf. All 4 days there'll be the usual stuff on Golf Channel, right? The
Mhm.
where we'll be able to hear and see them out there and them doing their usual thing. Uh, the If you want to follow what's going on now and tomorrow, um, it's on the NBC Sports app, and then the actual tournament, which you will be able to see again in its entirety, is on CBS on Saturday and Sunday, and streaming on Paramount Plus. So if you go to the AT&T Classic page on Sports Talk Florida, it has all of the places where you can see the event, the times, the dates, and all that sort of stuff. So
There,
if you're confused about where it's going to be, go over there and it'll tell you.
yeah, you can also get feature group coverage on ESPN Plus if you're a subscriber.
Right. Yeah. Which is the case all year long.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
So
every tournament.
that's a good one. All right, let's move over to across the state of Florida to Daytona, and the Daytona 500. And tonight, it's a unique situation for those of you who aren't aware. Uh, this is they go ahead and they decide who's going to be who's they have a pole position situation where you go and you've got your pole sitters, and that's number one and number two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens is the rest of the field is decided by these two races tonight. And by the way, if for instance, and the pole sitters are in there. By the way, Kyle Busch is for the first time. Kyle Busch gets the pole for Richard Childress in his car, and he's been around for quite a while, and he hasn't done it, but now he's got it, and that's good for him. So Kyle Busch is the running. He'll be the point at the Daytona Speedway. Now, he will also race in tonight's race. And Chase Briscoe, by the way, is the on the inside. The outside is Kyle. The inside is Chase Briscoe. The way it works, which is interesting, is that if Kyle or Briscoe wrecks their car, they got to go to the back of the line. So even though they won the pole, if anyhow they wipe out, then they're starting at the back of the field.
Do they have to compete tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, why? It was more of like,
right?
If they don't have to, why
if
would
you didn't have to, why would you? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you do have to.
Okay.
There's no getting around that one. Now, there's a number of schools of thought. Is one, I don't
Drive
know,
safe.
Daytona. There's three speedways in this country where the cars go incredibly fast. They are bumper to bumper at 200 miles an hour. And those three tracks are Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta. Okay. Every other track, it's either a mile and a half or sometimes less than a mile or less. And so this is where speed matters, but more than just speed, your ability to stay out of trouble is very important, because you're going 200 miles an hour and you are literally an inch and a half away from the car in front of you. If you just make that turn a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, you can either knock the car in front of you out of the way, or you can get into a serious wreck, which will cause, terrible havoc the whole time. So you got to be careful. And so those two races tonight on FS1, starting at 7 o'clock. You can listen to the races on Sports Talk Florida. Just go to our page on the Daytona 500 Sports Talk Florida. There's a link to the Motor Racing Network, and you'll be able to hear all of the races tonight, and of course then again on Sunday on the Daytona 500. So that's where we got with that at the moment. So let's take a quick look and see who the favorites are. Now, Ryan Blaney, who has run really well over the past couple of years in his Penske Ford, is a guy who many of the odds makers think he's going to be the guy that wins. Now, Ryan was really hot, last season. At the tail end of the season, he just totally was the guy to beat. His teammate Joey Logano is the second He's number 2 on that list of who might win. William Byron, who had a good tail end of the season last year, and Denny Hamlin. Those are your top 4 potential winners. 2 Fords, a Chevy, and a Toyota. For some reason, the Fords run really well at Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta. Um, they just seem to be built better for the 200 mile an hour traffic, which is not to say the other cars aren't. It just means that traditionally they've done very well there. So we'll see how Blaney, Logano, Byron, and Hamlin do tonight, along with a bunch of other really talented drivers. It's kind of funny. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, some of the guys that people think could slide in there. A contender's Austin Cedric. He's been he's one of the better young drivers. Kyle Busch. Um, he's consistent. Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell, Bubba Wallace. They all have shots at it. They've got the cars to do it, but these are 3 drivers who, in the case of Keselowski and Bell, have been there, done that, but haven't been there and done that in a while. Bubba Wallace, a guy who's a good driver, problem is he just hasn't been able to get across that finish line too many times. The dark horses: Ty Gibbs, Carson Hoover, Corey LaJoie, Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick, and AJ Allmendinger. Those are the guys who are your long shots in this particular race. Again, for us, tonight is how it works. We're going to race, and we're going to see how well we do. And you hope if you can win let me take the first race, right? The first race is for all the inside numbers. The second race is for all the outside. So if you win the first race, then you're sitting behind. You're sitting behind. Excuse me. I'm sorry, my voice is a little rough there. You're sitting behind Kyle Busch, and then of course, if you win the late race, you're going to sit behind Mr. Briscoe. So that's how that works, and that's how they fall into shape. So we'll see how that plays tonight. Again, all the information, go right over to our page right now. You can see what's going on, and also you can listen to the race. We have a nice link there to the Motor Racing Network, so you'll be able to follow along in that regard. So keep looking for that, and we think you'll enjoy it. And so there you go on that. Let's move now to an interesting story. It's an interesting story about college sports, but it's also an interesting story about how private equity and money could benefit USF, the Big 12, and it could be a template for what's going to go on, in the future. So let's go over and talk a little bit about what's going on with the Big 12. The Big 12, for those of you who aren't aware of it, the Big 12 Conference has gone in a landmark pursuit of private equity partnership that's reshaped basically the national conversation. And a few schools sit closer to that movement at the moment than USF. Multiple business outlets report that the conference is in advanced negotiations for a $500 million deal with RedBird Capital and the Tampa-based Weatherford Capital in co-investment platforms for Collegiate Athletic Solutions. Now, I cannot define for you what a collegiate athletic solution is, but I can define for you that venture capital is, a group that basically puts money into something with expectations of how to get it out. And that's, we've talked about investments and such. Now, why is this interesting? Well, it's interesting on two levels. One, because it's a venture capital group literally sinking $500 million into a conference. And for
Mm-hmm.
USF, it's significant because the Weatherford Capital Group is founded by Will Weatherford, who just happens to be the chairman of the board of the USF trustees and one of the most influential uh, business leaders, not only in Florida, but throughout the South. So his money tied to the Big 12 um, could very well be a future invitation to the Big 12 inviting South Florida. They were on the short list, but was not in a position to do it when they did expand. And I know for a fact both Weatherford and um, Big 12 officials wouldn't mind having USF and UCF in the same conference so they could have that war on I-4 back again. But more than that, what would happen is it would give the conference two incredibly large top 20 media markets, which would be uh, helpful. So I don't know. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that $500 million might just buy you enough good faith to push USF into the Big 12. But the big story, I guess, more than that, is the Big 12 is jumping out and getting $500 million in private equity money.
Yeah, that's it's a conference that has been trailing like the others for a while. They have to go out, and Brett Yormark knows they have to be innovative for their conference in terms of their revenue streams and stuff like that because they just don't command as much in terms of their media rights as the other
Mhm.
conferences do. Um, this isn't the only front that they're getting innovative on. They announced that they're playing their basketball championship tournaments on an ABS glass floor. Like this is something where they're kind of pulling out all the stops, trying to get innovative and draw eyeballs to the Big 12 that really in football it just perceptionally is behind everybody else.
Well, I think the other thing is, in fairness to the conference, um, the Big 12 has been kind of the flyover, conference.
Hmm.
We've got for years it was ruled by Texas and Oklahoma. And when you lose two brands like Texas and Oklahoma, you're in trouble. Um,
Yeah.
that, there's no question about that. You do not replace them. Now, um, Bowlesby went out and decided, okay, I'm going to get the four best um, group of five teams I can find, and
Hmm.
he went out and he got Central Florida, Houston, Cincinnati, and the sleeping giant in that group was BYU.
Hmm.
BYU had been, from for a number of years, BYU had been desperately attempting to get into, a power conference, and they have a worldwide following
Hmm.
because of the Church of Latter Day Saints,
Yeah.
and so um, for them to be added to the Big 12 was a coup for Bowlesby, frankly, and certainly didn't hurt BYU.
Hmm.
Then we had the implosion of the pack, and four teams fell into their lap. So they got the Arizona teams, they got Utah, and they got Colorado. Well,
Yeah.
now you've got a situation where you've got two teams that are in the West Coast time zone, two teams that are in the Mountain time zone, a lot of teams that are in the Central time zone, and a few teams that are out in the Eastern time. So you got all four time zones covered.
Mm-hmm.
But you still don't have a marquee football school. You have a number of talented football teams. Uh, it's probably better known for its basketball at this point than
Oh
it is
yeah.
for its football. So when they went out and hired um, Brett Yormark, a lot of people were like, "What? Wait, what?" It's for those who don't know, Brett Yormark for years was a promoter, a guy who um, put together deals. Um, he basically helped with the Barclays Center and getting things working with the New Jersey Nets. I'm sorry, the New York Nets. Um, Freudian slip there. Um, and a number of other, promotions. I mean, he is, Brett Yormark is to college basketball and college football kind of like a PT Barnum. Uh, there's no there's nothing on the list of things that Brett Yormark doesn't have a way to make it promotable, and I think that has benefited the Big 12. Now, the fact that they go after venture money again because of Yormark's background doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
But as you put it, and I think this is totally innovative. He's willing to do anything. He's talking about playing basketball not just in Mexico but over in Europe. He would like to take have a tournament over there. He's talked about having the Big 12 tournament at the Barclays Center where he certainly has a lot of history. So there's a lot of things that Brett Yormark is doing, and they were the first, the conference wise. They were the first to go in and say, you know what, I know people are worried about about venture capital, but I know how to work with the venture capital.
Yeah.
So I think the toughest part for Brett has been you know a lot of very conservative universities in the Big 12, and you gotta get them to sign off on this. And I think that he's almost got that one put together. If he gets that put together, then this capital deal will fall into place.
Yeah. I am curious just on the sometimes in the pursuit of innovation you can kind of like lose your way or your
Yeah,
identity, your
sure.
idea. What in the world would the Big 12 gain from playing their championship basketball tournament in the Barclays Center? Unless
It,
I'm forgetting a school, their northernmost reach is Cincinnati,
technically it'd be West Virginia, but
West Virginia. Okay.
uh, not that West Virginia is a big draw in New York. Uh, One of the things Brett tried something, and for reasons, I mean, he really he and Bowlesby saved the conference, okay?
Hmm.
Because if Bowlesby hadn't gotten those four teams in when he got them in, it's very possible that conference could have either melted, gone the way of the Pac-12, frankly,
Yeah.
and been absorbed by the ACC and maybe the SEC because of Oklahoma and Texas going in. Maybe they've been able to pull over Texas Tech or somebody like that.
Yeah.
But they were going somewhere other than where they were right now. So
Hmm.
Bowlesby put the four in there. That stabilized them for a while. What happened was, they ended up getting the two Arizona schools in Colorado. Now, where the Big 12, I'm sorry, yeah, where the Big 12 and where the Big 12 and the potential of playing in Brooklyn happened was there was a very strong push by Yormark to add to the tournament. I'm sorry, to the conference for the tournament purposes. UConn. UConn is
Okay.
probably bigger in. I mean, UConn is basketball in New York is massive. They'll sell out Madison Square Garden
Oh yeah.
without But those are because the Hurley boys are the Hurley boys coach and the Hurley boys coach. They're Jersey boys, and man, they can draw. UConn can draw. So that was conversation when UConn was on the table for reasons that I have no idea why the conference balked at taking UConn. They said, well, they don't have a good football program. Well, Brett was saying, look, we could do this. We could bring in, UConn and shoot, what was the other school? Gonzaga. They could do Gonzaga and UConn as basketball, and then UConn football could join it at a later date. They didn't bite on that one either. So, will UConn eventually be a member of the Big 12? I have no idea. But the concept that Brett wanted was he wanted a Northeast team. He wanted a Northeast team to be in New York. He wanted it to be UConn, and the Big 12 decided, sorry, but no, we're not buying that.
Yeah, well, I would mark that under the innovative category for sure. Yeah, that and Gonzaga now off the table as a part of the Pac-12, the new Pac-12, I believe. It was either Pac-12 or Mountain West. I believe it's new Pac-12.
It's a Pac-12. You're right.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Gonzaga is a basketball-only member of the new Pac-12, correct?
Correct. They don't have a football team.
Yeah. I didn't think so, but I just wanted to double-check myself there. Yeah, and UConn football this year, I think, ironically enough, went out and had a fantastic season.
Yeah.
And their head coach left them. Like, this is a situation where if the Big 12 had pulled the trigger, UConn would be in a much better position overall right now because they had built something pretty good this year. And if they had the money and the backing and the brand of the Big 12 behind them, that's something where you can be a little bit more serious about football. And when you put together a decent football team, you're probably not going to retain it. I mean, that's just the matter of the fact here in terms of the type of school UConn is versus the other teams. But it gives you the ability to retain some players. It gives you the ability to build on some success that you had this year if you were UConn. And on the flip side of it, the Big 12 would have also had the number 2 team in the country in basketball this year to go along with the number 1 team, to go along with Kansas, who has the number 1 overall pick, even though he doesn't play in a third of his games. So, they're really talent rich. The only problem, and it's a problem that they just cannot, they can't physically fix this. It's not possible. They're talent rich beyond belief in terms of some of the products that they put on the football field and their entire conference as a whole in basketball.
Right.
But they're just not brand rich on the football field. They're pretty brand rich in terms of basketball. They have Arizona and Kansas, and both of those are enough to carry weight for really an entire conference.
Well, don't forget Houston.
Yeah. Those are just 2 off the top of my head. They're deep in terms of what they have for their basketball. I mean, Iowa State's been fantastic with TJ Otzelberger now. So they have all the talent in the world. The problem is that their logo just doesn't carry enough weight in terms of what they do on the football field, and the logos that they have in their conference don't carry enough weight in terms of what they do on the football field.
Yeah, and I think that they make more money than the ACC, but the ACC is starting to claw back some of the eyeballs with Miami and what's going to happen, down the road here. The benefit for USF and perhaps for, depending upon how you look at it, in the Big 12, is that it would mean, they get the number 13 media market, a new on-campus stadium. They would be with Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, the only AAU academic, universities in the conference, and they have an athletic department that's spending a whole lot of money that others in that in the G5 aren't even close to. So it's for them, for the Bulls to the Big 12, it's not really just it's not even it's competitive, it's financial and strategic.
Hmm.
So I don't know, and credit, by the way, to Heartland Sports for breaking the story, and you can read all about it um, over on Sports Florida. The and we encourage you to do that, as we have all kinds of good stuff over there. But a $500 million, we're gonna have to see what they can do with it. The other thing Brett did is, he's got tournaments going on in basketball tournaments going on in Vegas every year, and he's trying desperately to bring what you just said, a brand, um,
Hmm.
to that. It's hard to do when you just don't have, the you don't have. I mean, you have blue bloods in basketball in Kansas and Arizona, Houston. I mean, those are blue bloods in basketball, but that doesn't
Hmm.
translate to football.
No, it doesn't, and that's their problem because and we talked about it with Houston yesterday. Is
Yeah.
sometimes it's good for an individual school to invest in basketball over football, even though
Mhm.
football is the more profitable. In terms of a conference overall, though, you need a strong football presence. A strong basketball presence is not enough. Like you cannot prioritize being a good basketball conference over being a good football conference. It just doesn't carry enough financial weight along with it the
Mhm.
same way that football does.
100%. And the other thing too, that's so important is that you really need to have an overall situation where your basketball programs and your football programs are relevant
Hmm.
year in and year out. You can't just, okay, fine, maybe you have four pedigree teams that are basketball teams. You have four pedigree football teams.
Hmm.
It's you just have to be relevant in in more than one or two teams can't carry the conference.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue for the Big 12 isn't that they won't have good football teams. Like they'll have good
Yeah,
football
they'll
teams,
be
and you
fine.
would expect the way that Texas Tech has recruited that they'll become a consistent winner.
Hmm.
But that's the key term, the consistent winner. Like they don't have a school that has been at the top and stayed at the top for a while consistently. Like that Arizona State did fantastic. Not this past year, but the year before. They made the
Right.
college football playoff. Texas Tech made the college football playoff. BYU's doing a really good job. Utah's been pretty good for a while, but they haven't reached that peak. They haven't had a head. Whoa, they haven't had a school that has reached a peak like the SEC, like the Big Ten, like
Hmm.
the ACC, and kind of stayed there. Like whether or not people want to admit it, that's kind of what builds your brand power. Clemson is now a powerful brand
Hmm.
because they reached a peak under Dabo Sweeney and they stayed there for a
Hmm.
while. Like that happens. Alabama is where it is because of Nick Saban and Bear Bryant, and they were
Hmm.
there. Same goes with Michigan. Same goes with Ohio State. Florida
Hmm.
State's big brand. Why? Because they were really good for a really long time.
Hmm.
Miami's brand. Why? They were really good for a really long time. These brands are built through sustained success at the highest level, and they don't have that.
And you know what? Let's not for nothing. You can throw Florida into that because even
Yeah,
when Florida's football team wasn't doing well, they won a national championship in basketball.
yeah, yeah. And Florida, yeah, Florida's kind of flipped that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like yes, they had their peak in the late 2000s,
Right.
right up until 2010, where both were doing really good.
Hmm.
But for a good portion, it's been a little bit of a trade off for Florida in terms of,
Hmm.
especially recently, like
Right.
their football team's been just god awful. Claw your eyes out. I don't want
Right.
to turn the TV on. And their
Right.
basketball team won a national championship last year.
Right. And it's been a consistent, Sweet 16 team
Yep,
through
absolutely.
through three different coaches.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's if if one of your sports is down, you have to have the other come up.
Yeah.
And for many years we've talked about how great a school Indiana was with starting with Bobby Knight and moving on. They were consistently um, one of the best at what they did in basketball at Indiana. Well, guess what? 2 years now, we have had an Indiana football team that's been pretty damn impressive.
Hmm.
Uh, so I guess what I'm trying to say here, perhaps not as articulately as I would like to, is that the new normal is who has the money, who can spend that money, and who spends it wisely.
Hmm.
Just because you have it doesn't mean it works.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the key is. The key is, okay, cool. This is what we got to spend. Are we investing wisely? Miami, we've talked ad nauseum, uh, goes out and recruits their ass off for offensive and defensive linemen
Hmm.
and guys on the special teams and certainly some of the backs that you can get. I mean, it's not like you can't get wide receivers and running backs in Florida,
Yep.
so they can do that. But they've said, without any fear of contradiction, that they're investing their money in quarterbacks,
Hmm.
and that's where they go.
Yeah. And it's something that holds true in college. It holds true in every sport.
Hmm.
Just because you have money doesn't make you good. Like
No,
the Mets had the second highest payroll in baseball last year, and they
right.
missed the playoffs. It's something that is echoes throughout sports, regardless of which sport it is. Is
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if you spend the most. If you spend in the wrong spots, it's not going to be an effective use of your money. It's so these schools, Texas Tech is a fantastic example of effectively using your money in
Hmm.
NIL. Like they nailed it last year in the transfer portal.
Right.
And what I will say is sometimes in terms of these models is I'm curious to see. I think Indiana is a good example of this, where
Hmm.
the transfer portal has allowed them to rise to a height that they once thought really wasn't all that achievable,
Hmm.
especially in the college landscape that they're in. But they've effectively won through the transfer portal. Texas Tech has won through the transfer portal. Indiana won through the transfer portal. But them hitting on those transfer portal classes has allowed them to improve their high school recruiting and spend some more dollars in their high school recruiting to where they've turned these 1 to 2 year stints and hits where they're playing really good football to where they can now invest in the high school into the high school recruiting and create a more consistent product that will be successful and maintain that peak for years to come, as opposed to having to run back out into that portal and nail all your additions year in and year out.
If I could interject one more point to your situation with Persegretti at Indiana, um, he's also a systems guy.
Hmm.
If you look at some of the guys that they brought in from the portal, they weren't from Alabama, they weren't from Georgia, they weren't from USC and Michigan. I mean, he brought guys from James Madison. He brought guys
Hmm.
from Old Dominion. He brought guys from you know G5 schools, and because he knew them, or he knew that they could play what he needed them to play.
Yeah, and I you can see already the step up in their high school recruiting, but you can see the step up in their transfer portal recruiting as well.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
I think for as good as they are, they have the potential to get better because I think they have a chance to land some better athletes just overall.
Hmm.
Like they landed in the transfer portal this year, Nick Marsh out of Michigan State,
Hmm.
Josh Hoover out of TCU, and Turbo Richard out of Boston College. Like, are those, is that Georgia and Alabama's leftovers? No, but that's not where you need to go if you want to build the best roster out of the transfer
Hmm.
portal. Because if you're
Right.
trying to pluck guys that are transferring from Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State, the
Hmm.
odds are that these guys weren't good enough to start on those rosters, anyways.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. It's you know I think that what we're going to see in the future, um, and the reason private equity is important, is that's money you can give to the schools. They can use it for NIL money. They can use it for whatever it is they need to do. And believe me when I tell you that this will not be the last we hear about venture capital in college sports.
No, no, it will not be. But
I
it.
know Jim Phillips over at the ACC. They're kicking the tires on venture capital. We know for a fact that Utah went out and got venture capital.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, you've already seen it. Money rules the world in college sports now. It
mhm.
was a business before, but now more than ever, there's an added emphasis on just how much of a business college sports are.
Well, and to your point about spending, um, we'll go back baseball wise. You know, and people say, well, the Dodgers have all the money. Well, yeah, the Dodgers do have a lot of money. The Yankees have a lot of money, but you know, that doesn't guarantee the Dodgers or the Yankees going to be in the World Series every year.
Mm-hmm.
These are athletes. Athletes get hurt. When athletes
Yeah.
get hurt, it affects the team. You get a couple years ago, what was it? Arizona got hot and knocked the Dodgers out and ended up in the World Series. Um, I can guarantee you Arizona's payroll wasn't anywhere near the Dodgers' payroll, but
Yeah.
they got hot at the right time. Cincinnati got hot at the right time last season to knock the Mets out
Yeah.
before that happened. So money, and even when you invest it properly, like the Dodgers do, doesn't always guarantee you that you're going to win the World Series, even when you have played well, because the way the game is played, you know, it's cliche, but it is true that on any given day, you can lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your chances, if you got lots of money, of putting people in place so that you don't lose is better, but it doesn't mean any guarantees that it's going to happen.
Yeah. And you can look at that. There's obvious examples in college sports as well. Texas, they're one of the highest spenders. They didn't make it all that far. Oregon, probably the highest spender, I think, in college football. Um, they they got pounded in the Rose Bowl by Indiana, or they got pounded in the Peach Bowl by Indiana. They got pounded in the Rose Bowl last year by Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they've not done extraordinarily well in the postseason by any stretch. Texas A&M, one of the highest spenders, hasn't done fantastic in the postseason. Miami was a high spender that hadn't shown success up until this year. Like, just because you spend does not translate to on-field success automatically.
No, it doesn't. And we'll keep track of what's going on with venture capital, Weatherford Group, and if that, we're not saying that overnight South Florida's headed to the Big 12. That's not going to happen until probably 2030, when the new contracts pop up. And there is another potential movement of teams from conference to conference. But for right now, it's an interesting story, and we like to keep things interesting. So by all means, check out all of our stories on Sports Talk Florida and Sports Talk NY Fan. So we greatly appreciate that. Any final thoughts before we get out of here on a Thursday, Mister with Witherby?
Yeah, I'm currently paying attention. Well, not only to the Pebble Beach program, but I'm currently paying attention to the hearing on Trinidad Chambliss's eligibility is
Mm-hmm.
actually underway in Mississippi right now. They're in the process of delivering their final arguments, I believe. So the ruling that comes down from that, I think, is going to be relatively consequential in terms of not only the college sports landscape in terms of NIL and eligibility
Right.
as a whole, but it's going to play a big factor in terms of the college football landscape headed into next year if number 6 is able to wear that powder blue again.
Um, if you had to put a bet on it, which I'm not asking you to, but if you had to, where do you go with it? Does he get
I
it,
think
or
he's going to be eligible. I think the judge is going to rule in favor of him.
he's a good kid.
Yeah.
He's proven that, and that goes a long way.
Well,
Kept
and
his mouth shut, and he's done more than anybody ever expected him to do.
yeah, he worked his way up from a Division II school. Like, he was
Yeah.
successful at Ferris State. He earned his opportunity at Ole
Mhm.
Miss. From what I'm seeing is, like, so his Chambliss attorney said he was shocked that they called no witnesses, that the NCAA called no witnesses today. And he was shocked they also had no medical evidence. And that's his quote tweet. And from what I'm seeing, their final arguments have also gotten a bit contentious when Trinidad Chambliss's attorney tried to bring up new arguments in their closing arguments.
Well, yeah, that's not usually a winning proposition, especially when the other side doesn't bring any experts in.
Yeah. It's so, and from what I've read, is the NCAA really doesn't have, like, I don't think they have as good of standing in this. Like, I felt like with the Bediako case, and must stress, the Bediako case is not closed. His TRO was denied, so that means that he can't play anymore. His case will probably not be. He can still have a hearing on his case, and if they rule in favor of him, then he can be rewarded financial damages deemed by that judge from the NCAA. But this will be a shut and closed case once this one's ruled. And at that point, Trinidad Chambliss is either going to the NFL draft or he's going back to Ole Miss.
Right. All right. As the old saying goes, to be continued. Tomorrow, we'll be back. We'll be talking about what's coming up on this big weekend. And we hope that you all have a wonderful day. And join us tomorrow at noon. Remember, on Fridays, we are here at noon. And we'll talk more about what's happening over the weekend. And Lord knows there's going to be a lot to be talking about. And we'll probably sneak some baseball in as well. So until then, for Matt, I'm Jim. Take care, everybody.